It is election day, and what a show we have for you today. Later, I will be giving you my electoral map and results predictions. Very long. I put a long time into it yesterday, and I went back and forth on a few states, but we've gotten to what's going to be my final prediction a little bit later in the show. Today's election will be historic, no matter who wins. And you had better not be staying home and not voting if you didn't already vote. And of course, at minimum, it seems 30 or 35 or even more percent of the electorate has already voted in this election. Now, if Hillary Clinton wins, she will be the first female president in the United States. We have a population that is more than 50% made up of women. We have had 227 years of presidents since George Washington was elected in 1789, and 227 years of male presidents. It would be a major accomplishment for Hillary Clinton to become the next president of the United States. Now, at the more micro level, at the sort of 80-year level, rather than the 227-year level, a Hillary Clinton win would mark the beginning of 3 consecutive Democratic presidential terms for the first time since the period from 1933 to 1953, when Franklin D. Roosevelt and Harry Truman consecutively served for 20 years of Democratic presidents in the White House. If Hillary Clinton wins tonight, it's not a party because she's so progressive. It's a relief. And that gets me to Donald Trump. If Donald Trump wins tonight, it would also be historic in that it would represent a new low for the American electorate. It would set the lowest bar we've ever seen for how incompetent a candidate can be, for how incompetent the candidate's voters, mostly Republican voters, can be in electing someone so incompetent, and it might happen. Remember that former producer Lewis had his 80% of people are incompetent assertion, which many in our audience liked, but many in our audience, quite frankly, also found it pretty offensive. You can win an election with way under 80% of the vote, particularly since turnout is so low. Back in 2012, turnout was 57.5%. And if you need 50% plus one vote to win, not exactly, right, because of the Electoral College, but for the sake of this thought experiment, you can win with just over 28% of American adults voting for you. And there are definitely 28% of Americans that are totally clueless and misguided. That's a reality, Pat, and we've seen it this election. This is a very real thing.
Yeah, elections can be decided by very thin margins. In 2008, Barack Obama won North Carolina by an average of 2 votes per precinct.
Right.
And of course, you can point to 2000, where the vote was decided by 538 ballots cast in Florida.
A Trump win would also mark a new low or a new high, depending on how you think about it, in the anti-intellectualist movement that has gained strength in the United States. You can go back and find anti-intellectualism in the U.S. all the way back to the early colonial era. But modern American anti-intellectualism really was created by 19th century popular culture, and it has grown since. And a Donald Trump win would really be the culmination of that, right? Cheering and celebrating being clueless, championing being offensive merely for the sake of being offensive. Now, I won't tell you that if you don't vote, you can't complain. That's silly. Sometimes you hear people say, hey, if you don't vote, you have no right to complain. Now, you can complain whether you vote or not. You can have an opinion on war, whether or not you served in the military. You can have a point of view on gay rights, whether you're gay or straight or whatever you are, right? That's not what this is about. This is about today as a turning point where we can either stay the course with an admittedly disappointing centrism and neoliberal foreign policy and plutocratic economics that are the sort of modern Democratic Party. That's not great. Or we can turn around and really make the United States the laughingstock of the world, right? If you thought that world opinion of the U.S. was bad under George W. Bush, just wait until President Donald Trump is sworn in. And this is not at all about whether you prefer Hillary or Trump's view on Middle East dictatorships and how the U.S. should or shouldn't intervene. That's important if both candidates had an idea about it, but Trump doesn't. This is not about whether you want the top marginal tax rate to be 28 or 32 or 36 or 52 or whatever. This is about whether the United States becomes a joke with a clueless madman in its highest elected office. This is also, Pat, not about false optimism, right? But it can't be about we are terrible. The Trump campaign has been everything is a disaster in the US. And it's true that situations are not good for everybody. Situations are currently not good for way too many people in this country, and we need to continue to work on that. But things are objectively, undeniably better than when President Obama took office. And the flat out, I know Make America Great Again sounds positive, but it's really a negative campaign, which is America's not great and everything is terrible. And that's just not true right now.
And I get it. I mean, these are the two most unpopular presidential candidates in our history, so it seems. But you're voting not just for a president, you're also voting for the entire executive branch of government, which includes the Secretary of State and Secretary of Defense that
cabinet
portrays our view around the world. And it's going to affect the Supreme Court as well.
Yeah, Supreme Court. And we're talking about Rudy Giuliani and Gingrich in Trump's cabinet. I mean, ladies and gentlemen, please, this is a disaster. And by every measure, the economy is doing better than it was 8 years ago. Does everybody have a job? No, but unemployment is way down. We've seen record job creation. Challenges remain. Technological unemployment will be a problem. Wages are a problem. But we are way better off on the whole than we were 8 years ago. Healthcare. Millions more people have some healthcare now. Are premium increases a problem? Absolutely. Is that exclusively President Obama's fault or the fault of Obamacare? No. The problem of premium increases to health insurance predates President Obama by a few decades. I don't know if you're aware of that. Has the U.S. standing around the world improved, as Pat is talking about? The persona that is portrayed by the president and their cabinet, drastic improvement since George W. Bush left office. Is it good that we are not totally uninvolved, but have significantly scaled down two major military engagements in Iraq and Afghanistan? You better believe it. Donald Trump's message is that everything is terrible. He knows better than everyone. He knows better than the senators. He knows better than the generals. He knows better than the economists. He knows exactly how to fix it. And it's all so bad. And that's just not true. Hillary Clinton's message, although obviously for political reasons it has to be positive because it's built on the Obama legacy that she's talking about and is a part of as the former Secretary of State, it's sending the message that there are problems, but America doesn't need to be made great again because it's improved so much over the last 8 years. History will be made tonight, and I hope, Pat, that it's not the kind we don't want to be making, where we become the laughing stock of the world once again. And I have to repeat this. Remember how silly the United States looked with George W. Bush as its president. That is nothing compared to what it will be if Donald Trump is president of the United States.
Right. I'm of the opinion that the country is greater than it's ever been, and we're in a much better position than we were 8 years ago. So I would hope to see a Hillary Clinton win.
And for people who say that we are worse off now in total than we were 8 years ago, show me the numbers and don't come to me with, oh, the labor participation rate conspiracy theories, which don't account for counting, high school seniors as unemployed and don't account for the baby boomer retirement generation. I mean, really, come to me with data about how we are worse off today as a country than we were 8 years ago, and then we can actually have a conversation. Now, I'm going to give you later on my final election prediction for 2016, but I have a couple of other things I want to talk about before we get to that.